Welcome to Reds Access, your weekly Cincinnati Reds podcast covering news, games, and more. If you're a Reds fan like us, subscribe here on YouTube and be entered into a contest with a public profile to win an authentic Reds MLB shop hat and a $20 Skyline gift card. Also, follow us across most other platforms at Reds Access, Instagram, Reds_Access, and TikTok, Reds Access Official. We're your hosts, Kyler Osterberger and Collin Arter, lifelong Reds fans who love to talk ball. Kyler, how was your week?
It's good, man. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing okay. The weather made a turn for the worse here. We had a real bad storm last week. It didn't hit us too bad, I guess, but man, we were rained out and turned the weather for the worse. We went from 75 and sunny. I think we got about 70 a day. We're having a cold front coming through, and it's sounding like it's going to be about 35 degrees and chilly on opening day now.
Yeah. I grilled I think 3 days in a row last week, but being in Ohio, you get all 4 seasons in 1 week. So over the weekend, tons of rain, kind of just stuck up in the house. But yeah, other than that, it's been a great week for me though. Hopefully get some warm weather.
Do you have a kiss the chef little apron you put on?
No, I should though, because I'm grilling and I smoke out there. Like I've done some smoked queso. I'm probably gonna do some wings soon. So if one of our fans wants to gift me with a kiss the chef apron, I will rock it.
Hey guys, we've seen a pretty large growth here last couple of weeks throughout our platform, and definitely looking to expand that as we move toward the season, especially considering the giveaway we're doing. Again, you just have to have a public profile when you subscribe. Reason being is we have to be able to see that profile and enter it into the contest. As long as you have a public profile, you subscribe, by the end of the year, if the Reds make the playoffs, your name's entered in for a chance to win an authentic Reds MLB.com shop hat and a $20 Skyline gift card. Had somebody comment on the last video about that. I'm not sure how we'll get them back if it's not somebody local to Cincinnati. I guess we didn't really think about that on the Skyline gift card, but we'll figure it out. we can do.
I saw that. I saw that comment. I think it was like international, but yeah, I mean, we could always change the gift card, but still do like the Reds hat. So
not a big deal at all. But a couple, today we're going to go over. We talked about last week not having a set script today. Of course, next week talking about opening day, and excited for that. But we got so excited to start the podcast. We started a week kind of early. So we figured we'll put together our all-time Cincinnati Reds team. So we have a little bit of a, graphic to go over with that as we go through our picks with that. Before that, we do have some notes to touch on from this week in Reds baseball. Most notably, Tyler Stevenson once again hurt. Sounds like he'll be missing opening day. Caught the injury bug again, Kyler.
Yeah, I heard it was a lower oblique strain. We're thinking he's gonna miss opening day. But I like Tito did an interview, and I know David Bell got a lot of heat for this, where he would say that a date a player would return. And it was kind of just like what he thought. He wasn't using what medical was providing him, like a date. Like, let's say we think a player, Joey Votto, will be back on June 1st. Well, David Bell would go into a conference and say like May 15th. So Tito, the way he worded it was that he could be ready for opening day. He's not counting Tyler out, but he's not also giving us that false hope that he's going to be here for opening day. So we'll have to kind of see where he's at when opening day comes around. But to me, I think it's horrible, because I think Stevenson is just such an offensive weapon for us. And for him to be out opening day and maybe longer, I think it's going to hurt our offense. What are you thinking?
I know what Francona said, and he said that, he's not going to say he's not going to be ready for opening day. He's not going to say he is, but it sounded to me, based on what I read, that he's definitely going to miss the start of the season. And actually, I read further in an interview with Tyler Stevenson, who talked about it, who kind of let slip, it sucks he's going to miss the first couple weeks. And that's according to Mark Sheldon's interview on MLB.com. That tells me that Stevenson thinks that, he says it's not too serious, but he wants to. You're right. I've noticed
get back to 100%.
I've noticed a different mindset with injuries with Terry Francona. And I like that mindset. It's an important mindset to have, is to stay healthy and get healthy. Steer said the same thing. Abbott's the same way. We'll talk about Abbott shortly. and Stevenson now in the same boat, waiting till you're 100%. Little bit of a scare for catching depth. Trevino took a foul ball that same day off the hand, but it sounds all good. It sounds like that's all good, thank God. But Jose Trevino, good thing we got a guy like that in the offseason and made that trade for Fernando Cruz. Man, that's looking better and better every day to have not a top tier starting catcher in the league by any means, but a starting ability catcher in the league.
I would almost kind of correct you on that. I guess on the hitting side, he's never been a great hitter.
Side, yeah, I'm thinking a 230 hitter, you know.
Defensive wise, I have no worry with Trevino filling in opening day and what other games that Stevenson will miss. He's all-star, Gold Glove. So on that side, I'm good. I mean, I'm not worried there. It's the offensive side. I feel like, especially last season, Stevenson has been such a weapon for us, hitting in the middle of the lineup, and to lose him. And we've kind of talked about in previous shows where I feel like we kind of lack that power in our lineup. So that's the bummer of it. But I pulled some quick stats on Trevino. He's averaging about 81 games over his past 3 seasons. But hopefully we'll see some more power with him being at Great American Ballpark instead of Yankee Stadium. So maybe with that, maybe we have a better hitter in Trevino than he was in New York. But I totally agree with you. That trade looks better and better now that Stevenson is hurt. And we have an actual backup catcher that can fill that spot. Just hopefully the hitting can come too.
It is 3:18 we're recording this, and Emily, the show dropped at 1 a.m. Today, I guess. So I took a nap till like 11:30 at night, hopped on, played all night long, and you got the early access.
Yeah.
It is insane to see guys like Gavin Lux be a 67 overall starting in AAA on franchise mode. But what's crazy to me is guys like Jose Trevino who have never had crazy power in their career. I think he has 37 total big league home runs, and he's 31, 32 now. He's not a young guy, 30 maybe. He's been in the league a while. Have like a 70 power, 40 contact. Like, where's that come from?
I don't know.
I don't know where those come from, man. And it makes
their starting rotation too. Their overalls were all over. They had Nick Martinez at it. Martinez is an 80 and Brady Singer's like a 76 or something in the 5th start. Like, it's just whatever. Yeah, their overalls all over.
I've got us the playoffs year 3, or year 2 and year 3, but it's not the same team, I'll say. But there's some other guys too to kind of go over. Alexis Diaz made news early in spring camp saying that he had a hamstring injury, minor, just set him back a little bit. I don't know what's happened since then, but notably, Diaz came out last Saturday to get a clean inning in. Diaz faced 7 batters, 6 of them reached base, 3 of them were walked, and he got knocked for 5 runs. Diaz was quick to mention, or the news was quick to mention, Diaz had a cut on his finger because of a blister issue. Francona shut that down. Francona says he's not going to blame that cut for the issues last Saturday. And he then followed up on a comment, one of the reporters, I think it was Gordon Westermeyer, whatever his name is, the guy with the Inquirer, who is a Cubs fan, which is blasphemous anyways.
0-1 too.
I don't know why you have a Cubs fan doing Reds beat. Anyways.
Yeah, they're 0-1.
Yeah, they are 0-1. They are 0-1. But he says that he got Francona to basically admit to the fact that he's worried that Diaz just might be off target, off money. So issues with Alexis Diaz, a little bit injured. I guess thoughts on that. And one of the things they brought up, Kyler, was should Diaz stay in the minor league camp once he gets there?
Yeah. So I'm going back on my word because we had our rotation projections and I had Diaz staying as our closer, but obviously really struggled. Was it Saturday? So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think he should start in the minors, maybe get some confidence, maybe get success. I did see that interview with Tito as well, shutting it down, but I think that's just because Tito is such a accountable manager. Whether it's his fault or the player's fault, he's not going to kind of beat around the bush on that. So it was kind of like fresh air to see him shut that down because I feel like Bell would kind of play it up off of that. and find any excuse to not take accountability. So it was pretty cool to see Tito do that. I mean, it's not nice, but it's cool to see accountability finally, the players, the manager. But I know that he struggled with his walk rate, which last year I think it was around 13%. And I also think for his career average, it's around 13% as well, which is pretty high for a closer. But kind of to like counter that, if Diaz was to start on or start in AAA to start the season, I do know that we brought on Rogers and Barlow, and they both have closing experience, one with the Twins and one with the Royals. So I think if Diaz continues to struggle, we may kind of see our closer rotate depending on lefties and righties and who's playing better. I don't know what you're thinking about as a replacement for Diaz, but I know Rogers and Barlow do have the experience as a closer.
I'm still sticking strong with guys like Santillan, and I don't know if you saw the clips. I think I sent you the clip on Twitter of Luis May throwing that 103 mile an hour two-seamer. I've not seen a pitch with that much movement in a long time. I think my manager at work said it reminded him of Noah Syndergaard when he still had a working arm.
Yeah, that was some pretty dirty movement.
It was crazy movement, and if he can throw strikes, man, that's a guy I want. But you need to throw strikes, so I trust Santillan. I honestly don't. I guess going into the year, you want to give Diaz a shot, but I'd imagine, and Francona's a no-nonsense type of guy, I'd imagine it's a pretty quick leash.
Yeah. I think he's on a very short leash, and if he doesn't perform, I think it's pulled quickly, and it's not going to drag out. But speaking of injuries, maybe, I know the finger thing, but going back, I kind of missed a point I wanted to talk about with Stevenson being hurt. Who do you think's going to back up Trevino on that aspect? So if Stevenson's out, we obviously will start Trevino, but who do you think is going to fill that backup role?
Yeah. So I narrowed down two guys. I had the same thing, but I just totally skipped right past it.
No, you're good. I missed it too.
Yeah, so an intriguing guy is I think he's 26. It's Will Banfield, previous top prospect for the Marlins, has not worked out. But he hit 260 in Double-A with strong 23 home runs in 2023. Struggled on the power side in 24, but still hit like 247 in Triple-A. It wasn't like he had a terrible year. He's had 2 home runs this spring, one for 103.7 and one for over 110 mile an hour exit velocity. So hits the ball hard. Another guy is Austin Wynns, who came on when we needed him last year for a few games. He's 34. He's never made an opening day roster, despite being a 6-year Major League veteran. I would venture to say it's Wynns, just for the. Okay, I'm sorry. I would say if David Bell was running this team, it'd be Austin Wynns.
I agree.
Because he likes the veteran, but I've got to say, man, I think it'll be Will Banfield. I don't think Tito Francona runs his team the same way David Bell does. And a guy that's going to give you similar production numbers on hitting, but it's 25, has upside. I don't know, man. I mean, the only thing is you have to add him to the 40. You'd have to use an option to send him up and back down. But, I mean, let a guy see if he can play, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm a little different on you on this. I think Wynn will be the backup until Stevenson gets healthy. But I mean, like you said, Wynn's 34, and I had some stats, 637 plate appearances with a 609 OPS, which isn't good. It's below league average.
Terrible. It's terrible.
And then you have a minor leaguer that has never played in the big league, and he has an OPS of 652 in 6 seasons in the farm. So it's kind of picking the lesser of two evils. I think Wynn is going to be the backup, but I think that Banfield would be more promising, and I think it would be more proactive to start him and see how he does. But I don't know. I think the smart choice is to do Wynn, but that's just my opinion. I would rather Banfield, though. I'm with you on that.
I think in terms of roster dynamics, the smart choice is Wynn, like you said, and that's probably the way they'll go, just because of the roster, kind of the theatrics they'll do with that and the circus moves they have to do to keep guys in options. And the Reds are notorious for caring about options. It's what led guys like De La Cruz and Strand to wait so long to get called up in 23. That's why everyone was surprised when India made the team in 22 or in 21 rather.
Early. Yeah.
They just thought he had no shot. But one of the other things we want to talk about before we get into our all-time Reds team was kind of piggying off what we talked about just the other week about who is our fifth starter if Abbott's not ready to go. Well, first of all, Abbott, I don't think is going to be ready to go. Through 3 innings, he's planning to throw 4 innings this week, and then it'll be 5 innings the next week. And they still wanted to get him to 5. Now, I would imagine that means his 5th inning start would be in minor league camp, which means he missed the first week as a 7-day IL. So we might have one start that they're going to throw a 5th starter out there. We'll see. I have to look and see how the schedule works. I know you said technically you can miss that 5th starter, but they might still be played a little bit safe, depending on when that Andrew Abbott's last rehab game comes in. So we know Martinez, Lodolo, Green, and Singer are not in that order, but 1, 2, 3, 4 in the rotation. As I mentioned, Abbott pitched his first game, gave up 2 runs in 3 innings. Mark Sheldon had an interview with Andrew Abbott. Abbott says he's ready to go, felt great, knocked the rust off, happy to go. And he provided some insight saying the Reds wanted him to go 4 innings, then 5 innings, like I said. I think it comes down to the last 2 guys we talked about, and we'll talk about our opening day roster locks next week as we gear up for opening day. But it comes down to 2 guys, of course, Graham Ashcraft, Carson Spires. 2 guys that had a really, really different week last week, Kyler. We talked about Ashcraft not looking sharp, but they were close, career numbers. Man. Did Graham Ashcraft make the Reds' decision easier? Did he play himself out of a roster spot this week?
I think he did make the decision easier on the Reds on if they needed to pull a 5th starter or if Abbott has to miss. I think they're going to go with Spires for that. But I wouldn't count him fully out. I know that I wouldn't probably put him in the starting rotation. But with the Diaz drama, I want to throw out there that Ashcraft could be a potential option to fill in as a closer if need be, depending on Rogers and Barlow, kind of how we were talking about a little bit ago.
Yeah,
so I think Ashcraft is out of the starting rotation conversation, 100%. Mm-hmm. I would say 99. We're not going to hit 100 because if I'm wrong. But I think he could be utilized in the closer role. But I mean, at the end of the day, he is looking pretty rough this spring. I mean, that everyone knows that's been watching. I mean, I'm sure I know what your answer is, that you're going to go with Spires as well. But if you want to elaborate on why, I just think Ashcraft is making it way too easy to not put him in that 5th starting rotation.
Yeah. I mean, Spires has given up half the base runners that Ashcraft has this spring. Pitched 5 innings of ball last week. Last time he played, gave only 1 run. Spires overall has pitched to a 2.7 ERA this spring. Has faced 8.0 hitters on op quality, which is the equivalent, I believe, of AAA players. Ashcraft has faced mainly AAA players as well, just slightly above that. Ashcraft has walked 8 in 13 innings. He's given up 16 hits in 13 innings. And he has a 6.75 ERA in 13 innings this spring. Last game, we talked about making the Reds easier. 2 2/3, walked 4, 3 hits, gave up 3 runs. Mercifully only gave up 3 runs, by the way. Didn't even finish the 3rd inning. I think this is Spires. I think he made it really easy on Spires. And I'm excited. I've always felt like Spires had good stuff. I've been talking about it, despite not having the good stats. He reminds me of a guy like Jeff Hoffman or Luke Weaver that never put together for the Reds. Maybe had decent seasons, but then he leaves and becomes a top tier guy, right? I don't want that to happen with this guy. So I hope we figure it out and he gets the good playing time and the right development before that. But yeah, presumably, I mean, I think Ashcraft made the Reds decision easy. And I would say also there's a chance that he just doesn't make the roster altogether. I say that because Cowboy Jeff Brantley, I believe, said that he thinks there's going to be a lot of kind of shock decisions on the roster this year. Moving towards opening day, people did not see coming. So that's one of them for me.
I was definitely going to just add to that. I feel like we're so used to this being ran by Bell that I don't think anyone's ready for the way that Tito is going to make roster moves. Like, I feel like maybe if this was an issue last year before going into opening day, I feel like David Bell would still probably just put Ashcraft out there just because he has starting experience. But this year, he's on a very short leash, and just Tito with the accountability like we talked about earlier. I don't think he has a chance to earn that starting spot back. I think he's too far gone now.
No, I totally agree. I think he's too far gone as well. I hope he figures it out because I like the guy, but
yeah,
tough going for him. Main segment today, like I said, we are doing an all-time Reds team. We are starting at catcher, but we talked about what we were going to do and what years we'd do, and I believe we decided on just all-time Reds from 1868 on. Now, we don't have anybody too old, and honestly, there is some recency bias here, Kyler. For me, I don't know about you, but there are a couple guys I kind of selected here, and I selected them because I liked watching them growing up, even though I know there's a guy with better statistics that should have had the spot. So maybe some recency bias, but I think our list is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a couple that we're gonna get to that people are gonna be like, oh yeah, 2000s and earlier. But yeah, like you said, like growing up, these are players we watch. I still think they're great players. Yeah. They might not be the greatest Reds player in that position, but I would say they're all top three, and then maybe just our bias kind of push them through. But you guys are gonna see here in a minute, and you'll probably know why.
So we'll start at catcher, and I really think there really is only one way to go here, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. It's the greatest catcher in MLB history.
Yeah, despite what the St. Louis Cardinals fans have to say, greatest catcher in MLB history is Johnny Bench. Johnny Bench is won MVP twice by the time he was 24. To put that in perspective, Ellie would have to win that back-to-back years to be there. Johnny Bench hit 389 home runs, third all-time in home runs for a catcher. Won the Gold Glove Award 10 times, was an All-Star 13 consecutive times, and 4 times finished in the top 5 in MVP winning. So overall, I mean, Johnny Bench is an all-time great. And we're going to
say Rookie of the Year as
well. Rookie of the Year as well. Definitely a stud. But and probably one of the most iconic Reds, especially going through the Big Red Machine and stuff.
I was just about to add that he was pretty much the key leader for the Big Red Machine during the 70s and the 2 World Series.
100%. He played a long time. I think he played like 1983 with the Reds' entire career. A lot of these guys you'll see maybe switched up teams here or there, or well, I guess it's funny because I guess not. There's probably 3 or 4 guys on this list. I think there's 4 guys on this list play with the Reds their entire career. So I say that going in, but it's funny, man, how a lot of these guys are not only played with the Reds the whole career, but they're absolute studs. But I'll let you take. We'll pass off here. This is a combined list of best players all time. Johnny Bench at catcher. We'll move across the diamond to first base.
Yeah. So I think this could be a little bias from both of us, but we have Joey Votto. One of those, as you were speaking, spent their entire career with the Reds, but had to screw it up by going to the Blue Jays. Should have just retired, but the Reds should have signed him, I think, for 1 more year, let him retire a Red. But we're just not going to count that. He's a Reds pretty much his whole career. Just a 920 career OPS. Just a solid first baseman for the Reds. I mean, we grew up on Joey Votto. Just a great player. We got some stats here. The .409 career on base. 474 in 2012. 2017 MVP got robbed. Tough thing, but 6 times top 10 MVP. He won in 2010. 63 career WAR. 6-time All-Star. I mean, I don't really know if I can say much. I know he had some injuries towards the end of his career, was battling some of that, lost a little bit of power. I know he had some issues in the playoffs, hitting and stuff like that. But for my greatest of all time, Votto's got to be on first base.
So I'll put in perspective that 2017 season. Votto lost the MVP by 2 votes to Giancarlo Stanton. In 17, it might have been Mike Stanton. I'm not sure. But Mike Stanton did have 59 home runs, did hit 281, did slug 631. Joey Votto hit 320, walked 134 times, played every game, hit 36 home runs, knocked in 100 runs, and slugged 578 while maintaining a higher OPS than the guy that hit 60 home runs. Joey Votto should have won MVP that year. The reason Joey Votto did not win MVP that year is if I look up the 2017 Cincinnati Reds, I know for this, I know we stunk 68 and 94. He was the only good player on a terrible team.
Well, it's just like the Joe Burrow thing. Joe Burrow should have won MVP last year, but since the Bengals didn't make the playoffs, you're just kind of scratched out of that. Well, Votto wasn't scratched out, but there's a lot of bias when that voting comes out if you're on a crappy team, but you're putting up MVP numbers.
I would say a lot of the reason that Votto didn't win it that year, by the way, is because he'd already won it once. And that's a shame that that's the way it kind of goes. But Votto definitely should be a two-time award winner. But you said a 6-time top 10 MVP finish, one in 2010, 63 career WAR, 6-time All-Star. Man, the only thing I was trying to think here, there's a lack of solid Reds first baseman, in my opinion. I think like Ted Kluszewski, Sean Casey. But Sean Casey, he was a popular guy, but wasn't a great player for a lot of his career.
He was loved by he was like, where you see those charts where it's like loved by the fans, great player, loved by the fans, medium player, like our average player. He was a loved by the fans average player. I remember he came to our Fairfield Elementary. He came to our gym class. We got to meet him. I got like an autograph card. Just a great dude. I always went above and beyond, but was never like a all-star first baseman in a sense.
The mayor. But yeah, so there's not a better choice than Votto. I mean, Votto is one of the best first basemen ever do. I think he's a Hall of Famer. There's some controversy to that, especially considering he couldn't really stay healthy from 2018 on, unfortunately. Definitely could have put up some better stats in his career if he would have stayed healthy. But Votto, by far, all-time Reds best first baseman. And the reason why we're not including guys like Pete Rose or Tony Perez is we got them on the list, just some different positions. They played some different places.
They're moved around a lot.
I'll take the next one. This is going to upset some old heads. There's some old heads watching. All-time Reds second baseman, Brandon Phillips. I think we decided Brandon Phillips here. I know. It's not Joe Morgan. But let me say this. Brandon Phillips was a worse hitter than Joe Morgan. I get it. Brandon Phillips only had a worse OPS because he never walked. Brandon Phillips had 30 home run years, 100 RBI years. He was a strong hitter. Brandon Phillips also protected Joey Votto and played on some of the worst Reds teams around for years and was the only piece of that offense that could do anything. And no matter how good Joe Morgan was in fielding, Brandon Phillips was so much better, and the fielding percentage doesn't even begin to justify it. Think about the in between the legs tosses and Brandon Phillips is just such a iconic, and this is that recency bias we're talking about. I understand that Joe Morgan might be a better second baseman in statistics, and you look at all that stuff, but I can't go against Brandon Phillips. That dude BP, man, made my childhood. Watching every game, I used to do the bat wiggle, man, in the batting cages. I would do that.
He was clean. I mean, you could go YouTube Brandon Phillips Reds highlights, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Like, he was clean with the ball, double plays. I mean, he was fielding stuff that should have gotten by him. Just, backhands, dude, cross bodies, like anything you can think of, he did it with us. Just a great fielder.
I even remember going to like some of the Lexington Legends games when he was the owner down there, going to the games and watching him play. He would still play, and he was still smacking baseballs around at like 40. He had that big old bat wiggle, and he couldn't hit the breaking ball. His eyes were a little slow, I think. But if you threw a fastball, by God, watch out. It was going to the party deck. I guess
I'm going to actually let you take, if we're doing third base next, I'll let you take over that. I'd like to do shortstop tonight.
Okay. All right. So not a lot of Reds great third basemen, just being honest. Chris Sabo, Scott Rowland, Eugenio Suarez, all great players for a couple years. Or in Scott Rowland's case, a Hall of Fame career, just not with the Reds. Also, guys like Edwin Encarnacion that Reds traded for Scott Rowland and became one of the most prolific power hitters of Kyle, your and I's generation. It was Edwin Encarnacion and Jose Bautista causing thunder to come down in Toronto for 10 years.
Yeah.
But the one guy I think of when I think third baseman in Reds history is Tony Perez. Tony Perez, 16 years of 127 plus OPS or 127 OPS plus production. Key cog in the big red machine, and he did it for years with consistency. And this is going to make the old heads happy. Johnny Bench, one of the best guys of all time. And we could have gone a few ways on the third base. But I think looking at third base, Kyler, going with Tony Perez, just a nod to the Big Red Machine. Solid guy and a key Reds player. And I believe Hall of Famer Tony Perez. I might be wrong.
Yeah, 2000, I think he was inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But I do have an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I do have Pete Rose as an honorable mention for third base. We do have him on this list, just not a third. And I have a little stat. So Pete Rose played at third base for around 18% of his career with the Reds, but was obviously a pivotal player during that 75-78 season. So just want to throw it out there. Honorable mention Pete Rose at third, but we have him somewhere else on the list. You'll see soon.
I don't know. He's banned from baseball. Maybe we'll hold him off this list, and hold the shame of Cincinnati. No, of course Pete Rose is on this list, guys. I mean, we're talking about best Reds players of all time. But jump into shortstop. Tell them how Elly De La Cruz is the best shortstop of all time.
Yeah. Elly De La Cruz is number 5, 4, whatever we're on. No, I'm just kidding. So shortstop, we have Barry Larkin. I feel like there's a lot of guys I like at shortstop. I mean, I liked India. We talked about, I think, Cozart a couple weeks ago. But if we're doing greatest of all time, Barry Larkin. He had a solid career with us. He literally, I think he was the face of the franchise up until Griffey. Just amazing fielder, great hitter. Was very popular. I'm actually, if I can turn here, I'm actually wearing his City Connect jersey. But yeah, just a little note. Barry Larkin is my wife's favorite Reds player. She grew up watching him. Father-in-law had season tickets. They would go a lot to the games, and Barry Larkin was always her favorite. So great Reds player, face of the franchise for a little bit. But I couldn't think of a better shortstop for our all-time best Reds lineup.
I can't either. So, statistics wise, there were a lot of really bad years Barry Larkin was on the Reds. Had nothing to do with him. Obviously, a great player throughout his career. But unlike Joey Votto, who we didn't talk about in this regard, and I'm sorry, Joey Votto fans, Votto cost us multiple playoff years. That's the truth. He lost. He didn't have the clutch team when he needed it in the playoffs. Barry Larkin was the opposite. 862 playoff OPS. Key pivotal part of that 1990 wire-to-wire run. Amazing fielder, as you said. Amazing player. Barry Larkin, it was just such a solid player. And what's crazy is it wasn't handed to him. And he talks about that a lot when he talks about Elly. When he came up, he wasn't a great hitter. And he turned into one of the best hitting shortstops, Hall of Fame shortstops of all time. And that just guy had drive, loves the city, stayed around the city, and obviously still involved with the Reds today. So definitely Barry Larkin, best Reds shortstop. I didn't know how to set up the outfield here. And the reason why is that I think I have a pretty solid outfield if you want to hear it. Well, I mean, I think we've got the same list. I just don't know how to put them in left, center, right. So we'll go through one. And I already have them set up on the list. So if I'm mistaken on this, I am. But first, I guess let's go with center first. We all know who that's going to be, you and me, Kyler, and I'll take it real quick. Swingman himself, King Griffey Jr., I'm putting in center field, and I think we're putting in center field. And there's guys like Cesar Geronimo and King Griffey Sr. that you could put there. I was kind of surprised to find out the Reds have never had a dominant center fielder. And to be honest, Kyler, I'm going to include King Griffey Jr. in that thought of not having a dominant center fielder. Obviously brought a lot of popularity and buzz to the Reds when he came in. He only played in over 140 games one time. He only hit over 30 home runs one time. He was hurt. He didn't play. It was an embarrassment to the Reds, the money they're paying him. It came out recently. It was a Bobby Bonilla deal where they're still paying him up until last year.
Yeah. And he was like the top 3 highest paid players at that time still.
Disaster of a contract. But man, I mean, to bring Griffey home, that was a huge story. There's not a more iconic center fielder ever played for the Reds, so I have to say Griffey, right? I mean, you just have to.
I agree with you.
And I think it breaks the rule. I think it breaks the rule of saying, like, oh, well, you guys didn't have the iconic career with the Reds, but you have to. You just have to go Griffey in that situation.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no one else I'd rather have in center field. So actually, we were kind of talking about how you didn't really have a setup. Well, my left field, I actually have Pete Rose. Obviously the hit king, just longevity, just always like. I think we pulled up the statistic. There was only one season, which was his final season of less than 100 games he played. Obviously 4,256 hits. I know it's controversial. I know that he passed recently, and they're kind of talking about maybe allowing him to be in the Hall of Fame. I guess we'll have to kind of see how that plays out. But I have Pete Rose in left field. Pete Rose is one of the greatest players to play. I know there's the controversy behind it. He's got 3,562 career games. It's an MLB record. And what's so impressive is that he maintained a 303 batting average and never hit under 245 until his last season. It was 45, I think. Just insane. Like the longevity of his career to play as well as he did. It's just insane to me. Those statistics really jump off paper when you look at it. And I think he is probably the most famous, popular Reds player to ever do it, and maybe even one of the most famous MLB players just because of all the controversy behind him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think he's definitely one of the most famous MLB players. And I remember playing with the show as a kid and viewing the records, and we're supposed to be Pete Rose just as hits Cincinnati Reds, right?
Yeah,
Definitely controversial.
They wouldn't give it to him.
Definitely controversial. One of the best to ever do it. Did it for the longest time of anybody. I wouldn't say, 303 average is great. The fact that he did it so well for so long is what makes him special. Played from he was like 19 to when he was 45, played like 27 seasons. Pete Rose is really special, was really special. There won't be another buddy. It's an unbreakable record. They tried to give it remember when the MLB tried to give it to Ichiro? They tried to say, between the NPB and the MLB, man, come on. Just come on.
It's different. Yeah. You can't
include Pete Rose's minor league hits then, you know?
I was just about to say, I'll add up all of your career hits, minor and MLB. Like, you can't do that. Like, it's a statistic that's specific to the MLB, and it's got to stay that way.
No, I totally agree. And I think we had it set up the same way on the outfield. So that gets to our last guy in the outfield before we get into the pitchers. I'm going with Frank Robinson, a little throwback as well here in right field. Now, Frank Robinson, just for those of you guys that don't know ball or maybe too young to know about Frank Robinson, an absolute animal. He averaged 32 home runs a year for the Reds over 10 years. He won 2 MVPs, 9 times was top 10 in MVP voting, and overall in his Reds career had a 943 OPS. To put in perspective, that's almost 100 points higher in production than Ellie De La Cruz had, and almost 50 points higher than Joey Votto throughout his career. So imagine how productive and prolific Votto was, but add an extra 50 points on it. Add an extra every time he comes to the plate, half a back. Insane. And, Robinson spent a lot of his career in Baltimore, and I think on his Hall of Fame plaque, Kyle, I'm not mistaken, I believe he's inducted as a Baltimore Oriole.
I believe so, yeah.
But his best years, his most prolific years that got him so excited and so, or everybody's so excited and so into Frank Robinson was definitely in Cincinnati. And by the way, Frank Robinson was also a key contributor to breaking down the color barrier. Obviously came in later than Jackie Robinson, but one of the first stars of the MLB, one of the first black real stars of the MLB. So it goes further than the Reds with Frank Robinson, absolute stud. And right fielders that, talking about recency bias, I wanted to talk about Jay Bruce and stuff, but you look at his numbers, man, he just never, I loved watching him growing up, but I couldn't
Adam Dunn.
Yeah.
So you want to see 500-foot ball just crushed. But I do have an honorable mention for right field. I think some of the older guys would probably like, but George Foster, great accomplishments. I pulled some of his stats, 11 seasons in Cincinnati. He gave his prime to the Reds. One of the most feared right-handed sluggers in the National League. On 1,253 games with the Reds, he slashed a 286, 356, 514, 244 homers, 861 RBIs. He was MVP of the NL in 1977, led the league in homers in both 77, 78. just a monster as well. So I just wanted to give him an honorable mention in right field. I know that we're going with Robinson, but honorable mention, George Foster could have went both ways for me, in my personal opinion, but I think we both agreed on Robinson together.
Yeah, and we'll get into pitchers here shortly. I'm just realizing we're about 40 minutes. I told Kyler before we started, I was worried that we weren't going to be able to fill the time with this episode just because of not having so much of a plan. We had concepts of a plan, but not having as much of a plan as we do on a lot of these other episodes going into it. It's just fun. We're at 40. I don't think we had an issue with it, Kyler. I think turns out we like to talk.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, we can kind of run through the last two.
No. I'm more than fine. It's crazy that I was
worried.
I'll let you go over who we're picking for starting pitcher, but I'll give an honorable mention on my end here.
Yeah, so I actually have the pick and an honorable mention as well. So I'll do the pick. I don't know. I kept this one secret. So I have my starters Cueto.
Yeah.
Very dominant 3 years with the Reds. Opening day pitcher for us, all that kind of stuff. But my honorable mention, and there's a big reason behind that, is Trevor Bauer. He's my honorable mention. I know there's a lot of controversy behind that as well. He didn't do it. There's receipts. But the only Reds Cy Young winner ever. History. I mean, you can't be on an honorable mention list with being the only Reds pitcher to ever win a Cy Young. So he's my honorable mention. I'm not sure if it's the same for you or if you had someone else in mind.
I tend to stay away from the Trevor Bauer situation. So it was definitely not Trevor Bauer. Whose names will not be spoken. I went Gary Nolan. Kind of a lesser known name now. He was out of baseball by 30, so his arm kind of died on him. But
he's Gary up there Nolan, for strikeouts though for the Reds.
Yeah, he had like 1,100. Gary Nolan had just over a 3.0 ERA and won 110 games over 10 years. Key part of the Big Red Machine, and really their ace for a lot of those years. And he was young. He was like 22, 23, 24. And then another honorable mention is Hunter Green. Talk about recency bias. He's locked down for 5 more years. I don't see why Hunter Green couldn't take Cueto's spot here. But it's definitely, as of right now, it is Johnny Cueto, right?
Yeah, I feel like if maybe 3 years down the road we did this, it probably would be Hunter Green. But for now, making this list as of March 18th, I feel like we have to go with Cueto.
We've got a 3.21 ERA over 8 years, racked up almost 100 wins in Cincinnati, pitched to 126 ERA plus. Of course, had some Cy Young-like seasons. I think specifically to his 20-win season.
It was 19.
Was it 19? 19? No, it was 20.
I'm pretty sure he lost his 20th game when he came out. They lost that game, I think.
He won it in he had 20 wins in 14 and 19 wins in 12.
I'm thinking of 12.
Look at the dominant stretch. So in 2011 he had 2.3 ERA, 2012 a 2.78, 2013 a 2.82, and 2014 a 2.25.
And that's a lot of innings.
2014 he threw 200. Okay, and think about this, because this is something that's not a thing anymore in the MLB. Through 243 innings, only 10 years ago, which is a lot of innings. 242 strikeouts led the league. Only gave up 6 hits per 9, a whip under 1, and somehow finished second in the Cy Young race. Who did he lose to? Clayton Kershaw, who had a 1.77 ERA, won 21 games.
Yeah.
So he lost.
And that was an insane season too. Yeah,
right.
Kershaw was insane back then.
He lost to prime Clayton Kershaw, and he did the same thing. Came fourth a few years prior. Johnny Cueto, absolutely dominant on the Reds when he played for the Reds. I even had a Johnny baseball shirt when I was a kid that I would wear to the games. I loved that shirt, man. All-time Reds pitcher. Big part of my childhood. I remember we traded him away for basically nothing, so we weren't going to sign him an extension. I just got so mad. It turns out we were good about it. He only had, I think, 2 healthy years in San Francisco. He just got old. But Johnny Cueto, all-time pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. And one of my all-time favorites as well. So, again, a little bit of recency bias, but I think if you look at the stats, you can make an argument for Cueto over Nolan as well, especially considering his abilities in his prime compared to contemporary pitching.
Yeah.
I would say the last guy here now, also a little controversial.
We like controversial people.
Yeah. It's apparently the Reds would prefer that. But I would there are guys that we could have picked. Rob Dibble is a guy that comes to mind. Nasty Boys. But looking at a relief pitcher for the Reds, Aroldis Chapman was a different level of dominant for the Cincinnati Reds, Kyler, when he played for us. 4-time All-Star and got Cy Young votes as a closer in 2012. So 4-time All-Star in 5 seasons, 12, 13. I guess. Yeah, he played for us for 6 years, the closer for 4 of them. Every year he closed, he was an All-Star. 2.75 ERA, or I'm sorry, 2.17 ERA and just over a 1 WHIP. Threw strikes and threw hard. And this is back for those of you that are a little bit younger. This is back before guys threw 105 miles an hour. I remember guys.
He was the only one to ever do it at that point. He broke the record.
Yeah, and guys just looked absolutely silly against him, Kyler. I can specifically remember.
Who holds the record now for the?
It's still Chapman. He hit the 106. It was like
you're right. Yeah, 105.7 or something like that.
Yeah. It's still Chapman, but I mean, it's, that'll probably get broken eventually. But look at that picture. Young Aroldis Chapman with the beard now. Aroldis Chapman, man, definitely our all-time Reds reliever. Kyler, if you got anything to say about Chapman.
Dude, I think the only thing I want to leave here is if you ever went to a Reds game when Chapman was called up to close, it was absolutely insane. I mean, I'm sure we were louder than Arrowhead. Probably not, but just absolutely insane when Chapman was called. And just to see him, I mean, he had some control issues, but I remember like batters seeing 103, 104, 105 consistently, didn't know what to do. I mean, he was striking out anyone and everyone. They just were not prepared for that. Now it's a little bit more common for people to start throwing higher, and there's like low, like 102, 103s, 101s. But just back then, 10 years ago or whatever, Chapman just was a monster. And I mean, he went to the Yankees, was great there. He's getting old now, but yeah, there's no one better than Chapman for that spot for our all-time Reds list.
It's funny, man. He was just so dominant. And it's crazy that we signed him. It's like if we would have signed Yamamoto last year, or if we would have signed Ohtani, or think about the Reds signing that caliber of player. That's what happened when we signed Chapman. It was signing that caliber of player. It was unheard of, and really the Reds haven't done it since. We swung and missed on Akiyama when he came over to the States, and they've been pretty hesitant to take up any Japanese players since.
I don't know why. There's so much gold over there in players.
I mean, I do get it, though. A lot of the guys that are really studs are going to go to play for the Dodgers. The Dodgers have such a Japanese culture built up with some of their players.
Well, I think also Ohtani really helps with that. I feel like wherever Ohtani goes, it's almost like following in his footsteps in a sense. So he's got a lot of pull with that market coming over here.
Oh yeah, it's insane, the Ohtani market. But Ohtani's a gold mine for the MLB too, regardless of the Japanese market. But this is our all-time Cincinnati Reds team. So you look at it, we have Rose, Griffey, and then Robinson and Wright. We have Tony Perez, Barry Larkin, Brandon Phillips, Joey Votto at first, Johnny Cueto starting, Aroldis Chapman bringing up the bullpen, and Johnny Bench catching. I think we did pretty good, Kyler.
Look, this is not going to be, or it might be controversial, might not be, but I would honestly put this all-time team against all the other all-time teams. I honestly think it might be one of the best all-time teams. And that's if you ask me. That's probably biased for Reds fans, but just seriously think about the lineup we put together and try to think of a team, like a full all-time team that you'd put together. I really do. I mean, we have a lot of big Red Machine players, but I just don't know if I could put together a better list for another team.
I think I might be able to make one with the Yankees, but I think any other team would be.
Well, payroll, you can spend whatever you want.
Yeah, no, you're
Same
right.
Dodgers too, but
I don't know about the Dodgers. I don't know if I could put together a Dodgers lineup that's better than this. I think Yankees look at Gehrig, Mantle, Ruth. Like maybe you get close, but it'd be close. It'd be close because Jeter at short, A-Rod at third. I mean, you can. Yeah. But guys, this is going to wrap up this episode of Reds Access. Of course, big thanks for tuning in. Reminder, subscribe to qualify with a public profile to qualify for the giveaway we're doing if the Reds make the playoffs. Cincinnati Reds MLB shop hat plus $20 Skyline gift card. But Kyle and I will be back soon next week. More breakdowns, hot takes, everything you know about your Cincinnati Redlegs. As we get towards opening day. Next week is opening week. We will be covering Tuesday night opening day and our final roster prediction, as well as our opening day prediction. Super excited to jump into that. And then, of course, I'll be doing a vlog as well for opening day. To be honest, I don't know what that's going to look like, because if it gets into my drink counter a little bit high, Kyler, the vlog might be a little sloppy. I'm planning on doing a vlog for opening day is what I should say. But guys, of course, like I said, be sure to follow, subscribe, and keep the conversation going with us on social media. Engage in the comments there. Tell us what you think about our list. But rounding third and headed for home for Kyler Osterberger and myself, go Reds.
Go Reds.